Drink it in, man.
Deep left side carry on. Picks on the block. At the 5. At the 2. At the 1 to the end zone. Touchdown, Detroit Lions.
Drink it in, man.
Get up, Stafford throws. It is end zone. Caught! Oh, baby, what a catch! Kenny Galladay, you're a freak! What a catch! Touchdown, Detroit Lions!
Cornbread! I love the Lions! Say it with me! I love the Lions!
Drink it in, man.
Welcome everybody to the Detroit Koolaid. It is Friday, and it's Griff coming at you today. Just wanted to go over a few things, but first, it's Friday, so everybody knows what comes first. It's the weather report. Gosh, it's been so warm here in Michigan lately, and this weekend's supposed to be another hot one. Everybody get outside, find a lake, find a pool, stay cool, and it's just, you have to really drink water if you're going to be outside. Stay hydrated, because we all know in the heat of summer, you can't wait till the end of the month, because that's when training camp starts. And that's what we're all waiting right now for. So, as always, on Friday, TGIF. Speaking of training camp, once again, everybody's supposed to be reporting later this month at the end of July. NFL is still planning on having training camp start at that time. I know there's going to be a lot of testing, and they have stopped any teams, practicing together. Once again, cut down on travel and everything like that. I'm not quite for sure what they're going to do with practices, and how much contact they'll have, how much time they'll have at practice, if it's going to be like on prior years, and like 3-hour practices, how much hitting, just to keep the contact down to a minimum. If it's going to be more, meetings, I don't know, for lack of a better term, movies, watching old game film, stuff like that. But once again, everybody's got to get the practice in. So I'm not quite for sure what it's going to look like. I know they said reporters are going to have limited access to the teams during training camp, once again to keep down traffic and people around. As you've all heard, chances are that fans will not be allowed there either, which is pretty disappointing. Once again, always like to go down to practice with Derek and check out the team to see where it's at, but I do understand, all the precautions that they are putting in place because of this. So with that, though, there was the announcement that the preseason was going to drop down from 4 to 2 games, and I know preseason football can be kind of boring. We all get hyped up for it, then you watch one drive and you realize it's preseason football, and you start channel surfing to find something else. And it just kind of started to make me wonder, really, because the NFL said 2 games. The Players Association, they were talking about having no games. And I know there's some people out there, it's like, how come they can't have 0 games like that? College does it. College goes right into their season, the first week. They have the month of practice, and then, all games count. There's no preseason, no scrimmages between other schools. Even so, some people can say that, the first couple of weeks is, teams, they play the lesser talented teams. That way they can, get their team up and running. But I can't see the NFL doing that. They need at least a little bit of preseason games, at least 1. 2, I can understand 2, but at least 1, just to get a chance to see some of the talent. I realize a lot of teams already have a lot of the roster in place, and there's going to be 80 guys in camp this year, so there's going to be fewer guys to be trying out for spots. But still, at the back end, you have to realize, these guys are important to the team. Starters go down, they fill roles, special teams roles. So, yeah, the coaches do need to see them some. As I always thought 4 was a lot. I remember in the 70s they used to have 6 games. 6 preseason games. I just find that absurd. But, 2 games would be fine. I think 0, I don't think that would be good at all. It just got me thinking, really, first, what kind of conditioning would the guys be in going into the first week of the season if they didn't have any preseason games? We hear that now. Last year when guys start off, so it's like, they were injured, they just have to get into game shape, or they were coming off off-season surgery, so they didn't get to, get everything up and running and get all the full contact and hits. And still, what kind of conditioning are the guys going to have if they just go through practice and then 0 games to even, get their feet underneath them a little bit, to go out there and try. You're going full speed right from the jump, on games that mean something. I mean, I'm not saying, they're pros, they should be used to it, they're working out now. If that's the case, then why do we always have to hear when a guy's been, they have to, they're not up to speed yet, you got to get their conditioning in? I mean, we hear that every year about, certain players. Not talking just the guys that were, injured, coming off injury, and they kind of had to work their way back in. I mean, even the guys who were not injured, they didn't get that full round of conditioning. They didn't play a whole lot in the preseason. So it's almost like you almost want to expect somebody to be, out there like puking on the field, like, steaming Willie Beeman or something like that, just because they're not, fully conditioned for the game and up and going. And that just makes you wonder what the gameplay is going to be like. It's going to look like, the timing routes are, for between wide receiver and quarterback, those will be off. The offensive line, how much real work are they going to get to see? I mean, yeah, you go against practice, but if you're limiting contact in practice, limiting practice time, getting full speed action of, trying to pick up blitzes, deciphering what the defense is trying to do, yeah, you can pick up things from prior year's game film, but still, having to get the, work as that cohesive unit. I mean, your offensive line is going to look terrible. And it just, I think the gameplay with that is just going to look so shoddy, and it's going to look like the preseason right there. I'm sure there's going to be guys that are going to go out there at full speed, but you don't really go half speed. But there are times that you go out there, you play not to get hurt as opposed to go out there and play full bore. So I'm thinking I wouldn't want it to be that type of game where guys are out there just trying to get their feet underneath them, trying to get up to full speed. But you might see that if you had 0 preseason games where guys are out there just, hey, they don't have the full playbook, they're not comfortable with each other, so they're going out there a little tentative, and the football is going to look very sloppy, very shoddy, a lot of a lot of missed passes, a lot of poor tackling, poor blocking up front, maybe some fumbles. Guys aren't used to the hitting, securing the ball as much. So I'm good with 2 games. I can live with that. But once again, it's could be debate between the NFL owners and the Players Association. They might have to settle on one, just to like I said, just to get some games in, or some game time in for the players, just so the coach can see a little more in live speed as opposed to just in practice. So even if they do, they go to practice, and it makes you wonder how long before they start the games. Will they start them on time? They're looking to start, training camp on time. But what if, this whole, pandemic extends longer? Obviously MLB, NHL, NBA, they're all working different things, to play a few, NBA and NHL, a few things before the playoffs. MLB's cut down to a 60-game season. It's one of those things like, how long does this extend before the NFL, maybe they start to chop games? Or is that even out of the question? No matter how long it goes, they're always going to play 16 no matter what, no matter how far it extends into the spring. I mean, it's always done by second week of February with the Super Bowl, and that's playing the full 16 games around the playoffs, and then the bye week in between the championships games and the Super Bowl. But what if they decide to cut it short? What would be a good number of games to count it? Yeah, this could be a full season. I mean, talking what, 8, 9, 10 games? Would you be okay with 10 games to be able to call it come up with a playoff round and go into Super Bowl at that? I mean, is 8 too few? I mean, you're playing everybody in your division, twice, and then maybe a couple other, I don't want to say like, closer teams, something like where the Lions might end up playing like Cincinnati and Cleveland or something like that. So once again, there's less travel. I mean, would everybody be okay with 8 games? Or does that just seem like it's not enough? I think if they were to cut it down, I mean, 10 I think is one of those nice numbers where teams just aren't slipping in. It is some sort of season. You might not play like those NFC versus AFC. You might just play everybody in the NFC. If you were to shorten the season, I know the schedule makers would have to do something like that to try to figure it out. But if you're pushing back the season anyways, they're going to have to readjust the schedule. So I think a good number would definitely be, if they were to cut down games, I think 10 would be a good number. But once again, that's my personal opinion. If you're thinking, that's too few, it's always going to be 16. If you get, if you don't, you're okay with 8, or you don't think the NFL is never going to cut any games, it's okay. I'm open for debate. I mean, feel free to hit me up on Twitter at Grifka DKC. Once again, that's at Grifka GRIFKA DKC, or call or text the hotline there. It's 989-272-3484. Once again, 989-272-3484. Would love to get some other people's opinions on that, other than mine. So I know me and Derek might discuss this on another show, but that's just what I think. 10 games would probably be the minimum to get to where I would feel comfortable to be able to get, to get teams into the playoffs and be able to work your way to, a Super Bowl champion that way. Another thing I want to touch base on here was, I want to talk about JASHON Cornell. I know Derek's started to watch a little more of his tape. Looked at some of his numbers. He was late round pick for Detroit. Did everybody see the article that PFF came out that they had him rated like the number 4 defensive tackles number wise? I mean, I get it. A lot of people swear by PFF. I've read stuff. A lot of pros like using it for with the college numbers, and even now they're they're trying to quantify like every little aspect of what every position does. And I get it. Watching a lot of tape, you're able to decide who's better at what and putting a number on it to figure out a certain percentage, but JASHON Cornell coming in at the number 4 defensive tackle and going into the draft by PFF? I mean, come on. I mean, really? I mean, you're number 4. I mean, what did every team just miss on this guy? I mean, for 7 rounds? And then all of a sudden the Lions were able to get a steal? I mean, it's one of those things where it kind of makes me wonder. I mean, who's grading this out? And somebody's like, yeah, okay, that's fine. But then every other scout for every other team, I know Derek had mentioned on a prior podcast, he wasn't even on his board, and he thought it was a bust pick when they got him, and then he said he went back and watched some tape, and he's starting to come around a little bit, and yeah, I just did my my armchair scouting, or lazy boy scouting as Derek calls it, but still, this guy was one of the top recruits coming out, and he was a no-show on one of the best defensive lines in the country. He wasn't even the best on one of the best defensive lines, so it's not like he was getting doubled and triple teamed. But still, I mean, he put up modest stats at best and really didn't show out anything for being like one of the top recruits in the country. I don't know if Detroit's thinking they're going to be able to strike it rich again like they did with Deshaun Hand. Deshaun Hand came out as a rookie and produced a lot better than what people would think. And we all know he was injured last year. And maybe they're hoping he can find some of that that magic again and produce again without being injured. Maybe that's what Detroit's kind of banking on, that they got JASHON Cornell. He's going to, kind of surprise guys. We're not talking he's going to turn into Reggie White or anybody like that. But still, be something decent, be something productive. But still, the number 4 defensive tackle, or, going into the draft, I mean, that's just a noggin scratcher to me. I mean, how is that? Gosh, I don't know. And it's one of those things where, like I said, I know a lot of people swear by PFF. A lot of people they have all these scouts, and Chris Collinsworth. I'm happy for you, man. You're able to do it, but that's just got to be one number and one thing I have to really think about, because even the number 4, I mean, still this guy was kind of like okay, yeah, we'll take him because he played in a big conference, and we have so much tape on him, and yeah, we didn't get to see his pro day because all those were canceled, and you just kind of okay, we're just going to take him because we know what you can pretty much do. But still, I mean, the number 4 defensive tackle, that's just a noggin scratcher to me. I don't get that one at all. So just makes me once again wonder a little bit more about PFF. I know Derek bashes me for it, but I'm not one just going to bow to the altar of PFF because some guy threw a number out there, and every NFL team missed on this guy. He was the number 4, and he just doesn't go until the 7th round. So once again, I still think if he shows up and does something cool, but I still think he's camp fodder for the team. I don't see him making this team. Let's do this. Let's take a break here, pay some bills, and we'll come right back, and we'll finish up here. Welcome back, everybody. Once again, this is Griff coming at you here on a Friday, and once again, if I have any thing that you disagree with me on the show, feel free, hit me up on Twitter at GriffkaDKC. That's at Griffka, GRIFKA DKC, or feel free to call or text our hotline here. That's 989-272-3484, or as Derek likes to say, 989-272 Kevin Smith and Herman Moore. So let's talk about the biggest thing that happened this week, and that was the big contract, that Pat Mahomes signed, the 10-year. Was it $500 million? I mean, some number that's just outrageously huge. And I know it's not affecting the Lions. I know it's not Detroit Lions, but that is just something that really stands out. This kind of goes back into the debate that me and Derek had on a prior show, that some teams just go for it. Some teams, they're going to spend the money no matter what, where other teams are going to be a little more frugal and not do that. This right here, yeah, Pat Mahomes probably one of the top 3 quarterbacks, and that might even be a stretch, saying down to 3 in the NFL. This is a guy that, he makes everybody around him better. He does not need to have the best of the best around him to be a good quarterback. He's going to keep everybody in every game, and he's going to be able to make plays with his arms, with his feet. He's such an athlete, and yes, hands down, you can't front. The guy's good. He's damn good. And Kansas City Chiefs were like, okay, we're going to pay you, and this is where I come to talk about it. Pay him. And I know Derek rips on me for it because, what year is this really going to hamstring the team? I'm not sure, but Kansas City's going all in right now. They have the team right now that they can do it. And once again, he's one of those quarterbacks that's he's gonna keep you around. He doesn't need the best of the best. So what? In 5 years, they don't. They're strapped for cash. They can't go out and get that that 5th wide receiver or that 4th running back. Who cares? You still got one of the best quarterbacks in the league. I mean, he's damn good. And this is what I believe. I saw that contract. I'm like, yeah, it's huge. They're going for it now. They're pushing all their chips in. They're going to have this guy. And right now, where the cap sits, the way it's set up, they're going to be good, and they're going to be damn good for at least the next 3, 4, 5 years. And they're going to be one of those teams that's going to be contending every year because they have this guy. And that's my point about the Lions. And this is what Derek always gets on me. He's like, "Oh, it doesn't make sense." And why? I mean, everybody kind of got mad when they signed Matt Stafford. And Derek had a great point, actually, when we were talking about this on a prior show after it happened. He goes, "Griff, look at it this way. The salary cap's always going up. At one point, it's not going to be that bad of a deal." And even now, that's what people are saying now. It's not that bad a deal what they got Matt Stafford at, what he produces. So I guess Kansas City's just kind of doing that right now. People are still seeing that number. It's going to be one of those things. Yeah, this might be, the salary cap might go down a little bit because of COVID-19 and not having as much money. But the television contracts are still there. They're still going to make money, and it's going to go up. It's going to go back up. So I don't see the salary cap going down. So once again, this is going to be one of those contracts. Everything, and oh gosh, it's going to be so terrible for him. In 4, 5, 6 years. I don't think so. It's going to be fine. So this is a smart play by Kansas City. They're locking up their quarterback. He's not going anywhere. It's what he said. He wanted to have security. And yeah, they paid him. They paid him what he was worth. Pat Mahomes is worth every penny of this contract. Once again, if you don't think so, you want to debate me on it, feel free. Hit me up on Twitter, at GriffkaDKC. That's fine. I mean, we can talk about it. But not having to worry about the quarterback position in a very tough division that Kansas City Chiefs playing with Las Vegas up on the rise. Denver seems to be improving. The Chargers, who knows about what they're going to do. They're obviously rebuilding, moving into that new stadium. But still, Kansas City not having to worry about the QB coming up is a good thing. So it's one of those things where I always I wish the Lions would do that. But they're not overpaying the wrong people. And Derek's always like, oh, they're always 30 years old and you want to pay them. No, I'm not saying pay a guy over 30 years old whatever he wants. That's not what I'm saying. But yeah, sometimes you got to pay a little bit more for proven talent, always as opposed to just going out there and, we'll just go get a draft pick for him. Kansas City's not going to bother doing that. They're going to have to worry about a quarterback. Now Detroit, yeah, they're going to have to do that here in a couple of years. Stafford's, getting a little older in the tooth. They, he hasn't won any big games yet, and that's always pointed out by a lot of pundits. They say it all the time. Yeah, he puts up mad stats, but how many 500 teams, has he beat? With winning records. He doesn't have a playoff victory, even though the Cowboys game, we all know that one was a highway robbery. Still, it's one of those things where I wish Detroit would do this. Every once in a while, you go out and pay somebody what they're worth, lock them up and get them. You got them. And once again, it's got to be a premium position. There's only a couple of those out there. Once again, quarterback, left tackle. That's it. I mean, it's kind of mind-boggling, almost, I don't want to say frustrating, that they don't do that. But, it's okay. I mean, once again, I always say it before, I said again, reasonable minds can differ. And that's fine. But I'm not saying Detroit should go overpay for a middle linebacker. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying they should go overpay for, an offensive guard. That's not what I'm saying. Locking up an offensive guard for 10 years. That's not what I'm saying. But, Kansas City, went all in on their quarterback, and Detroit did it before, and they kind of got busted on for it because Matt Stafford never won anything. But it's a good contract now, and I think in a few years everybody's going to realize that about this Pat Mahomes contract. It's not as bad as what it sounds, and the guy is going to be, top level talent. So, with that being said, it just kind of makes me wonder, though. I mean, the Lions still have some salary cap money left, and Derek's, been pining for him to, because they have the money to go get Jadeveon Clowney, which I don't think he's coming here. I don't think Clowney wants to come here. I don't think he feels the Lions are close enough, to get there. So I think you can throw as much money as you want at Jadeveon Clowney, but I don't think he's coming here. It just leads me to think, are the Detroit Lions, are they smart with their cap, or are they just cheap? It's like everybody always complains about ownership. We need to get a new owner for the team. Well, that's not going to happen. I mean, obviously not. Sheila Ford Hemp is going to be taking over right here. It's still, the same family's running it. I don't see her, obviously, turning the page, and it's obviously going to be some big changes, something like that. All of a sudden, they're always looking to, go all in. I still think the Fords look at it as a business. As long as they're making money, butts are, being filled in the seats. They got the TV contracts. They're still making money hand over fist. Yeah, they might not spend their whole cap. And everybody's like, oh, you got to save some for a rainy day for when there's injuries. You don't need $30 million for a rainy day fund. And if it's one of those things like, if they're being told like, hey, put a good team on the field, but this is what we really want you to spend, yeah, then they just might be being cheap. Or they're, Bob Quinn's being very smart, going, yeah, these guys want to get paid, but we don't want to pay them. We can get this talent that's very similar, and we can pay them less, and they'll take it. There's a lot of people, busting on Cam Newton for taking such a small, contract with the New England Patriots, and he's just like, well, it's about respect. He's betting on himself for 1 year. That's one of those things. I just don't think he had a huge market, and he saw New England and what they were, so it was one of those things like, hey, you want to come play here? This is what we're gonna pay you, and that's what he does. But I don't think everyone's like, well, Detroit should sign him. Detroit wasn't going to get Cam Newton. He wasn't going to come here and be a backup to Matt Stafford. So it doesn't matter how much money you have left in your cap because you're not going to get him. I just don't know if the Lions are just being cheap. I mean, Derek mentioned it before. He didn't see that big a change between, when Mr. Ford ran it and when Mrs. Ford ran it. Well, everybody knows when Ford ran, Mr. Ford ran it, the team was notoriously cheap. Everybody's like, well, I can hear stuff. Well, they went out and signed this guy. They gave, Matt Stafford big money, and they went and signed Scott Mitchell to big money, but still, I mean, one thing, William Clay Ford, the guy was just infatuated with quarterbacks. If anybody knows the team, I mean, that's one of the reasons why they went and they drafted Andre Ware. Even though Mouse Davis went, and the guy who invented the run and shoot, went and scouted him, at the University of Houston, came back and said Andre Ware couldn't hit the water from the beach, or hit the ocean from the beach, and that they still drafted him. William Clay Ford was always interested in getting that big quarterback, and they often failed. They would try to pay a quarterback, but they were always, I don't know who's scouting these guys. Scott Mitchell, that was just a waste. They thought, oh, we're going to pay this guy some money. He's going to come here. Never really proved anything. Andre Ware, they have given some money to. They gave some money to Matt Stafford. But it was one of those things where Ford always liked the quarterback, even when they were always looking for him. Back in the Greg Landry days, Greg Landry was a good quarterback. He wasn't a stud, but he was a good quarterback for the Lions back there in the 70s. I mean, I don't know why. There's so many quarterbacks. We often wonder why they didn't take a quarterback on that John Elway thing, but he was happy with Gary Danielson and Eric Hipple. He liked those guys. I couldn't understand it, but I think that part of that was just being cheap. He could get those guys. He was friendly with them. They thought they were decent quarterbacks, but still, they were just cheap. I mean, that's what they were. That's what their, Russ Thomas was their GM. He was cheap, but that was all coming from William Clay Ford. And I've read that a number of places. So I don't know where that changes, where it went to Martha Ford. Yeah, she came in, cleaned a little bit of house, but still, nothing really changed. It's not like they were ever worried about maxing out the cap, Even now, where they're sitting now, the last couple of years, they seem to have a little bit of money left, and we're like, go sign somebody. Still, I can't tell you if they're just being wise, if they're just kind of still in that penny pinching mode, treating it as a business. Bottom line, they still want to make X amount of dollars. That's what they're looking at. I'm hoping that, I'm going to lean towards the fact that Bob Quinn's just being smart about it. And and much like Derek says, just don't want to overpay for the sake of overpaying. So that's what I'm going to lead towards. But still, in the back of my mind, knowing this franchise the way I know it, and the way a number of you Lions fans know it, they just might be, they might be getting a little hamstrung there by ownership, saying, yeah, here's your salary cap, but we only want you to spend X amount of dollars on players. This is where we want you. I mean, and Bob Quinn, I think he's doing a good job amassing some talent on this team, and they're taking flyers on some guys, and they're bringing in, they drafted some guards. They have a bunch of offensive guards just trying to look for the best fit. So once again, they got a bunch of linebackers in there too, looking for, who can run the scheme that Matt Patricia wants. They have a crowded running back room. And there was even talk about bringing Mike Weber in from, when Dallas cut him. It's just like, why would you want Mike Weber? I mean, yeah, he was good at Detroit Cast Tech, but he didn't do anything at Ohio State. He was the number one running back there. And then he lost that position. He was a backup there. Went to Dallas, didn't do anything there. So why would you want to go get Mike Weber just to bring him into a crowded room? That doesn't make any sense either. So I just think Bob Quinn, I'm going to lean towards the fact that he's being smart, and they're not being hamstrung by ownership right now. And he's trying to put the best talent on the team, being the wisest that he can. But still, I said it before, I know we got an argument about, pushing all the chips in, going for it. But still, if they got to pay somebody young enough, like Kenny Boy, I'm not looking to pay that guy, $21 million a year. But, if he's looking for $17 million and he produces this year, yeah, I'm going to pay him $17 million. I know that might be a little bit out of the ballpark what Derek wants to pay, but guy produces, he keeps him here, he's comfortable here, you pay him. You don't try to replenish with it and try to redevelop somebody out of the draft. So that's my personal feeling, how I think. I still think you got to, pay some guys that are talented and, and keep them in house, especially when they're comfortable here. They're not looking to bail, and that's just how I feel. And I know other people disagree. Some people may agree with me. Yeah, I kind of tend to figure I know how Derek feels on that. But once again, if you don't disagree with me, that's fine. Hit me up on Twitter at GrifkaDKC, and we can talk about it. It doesn't bug me at all to get into a debate like that. So let's see. Anything else I want to touch here? I really don't have anything else I want to talk about here. Once again, preseason, training camp starting at the end of this month. I'm really hoping that the season, even if they play games with no fans in the stands, we still have football. I mean, watching my games, I watch plenty of games at home. I do go over to a friend's house every now and again, watch games with them. But I'm just looking for some pro football so we can get back in to watch our beloved Lions. So that's all I have for today. No tagline to end, no nope. But I appreciate everybody listening. Once again, would like everybody hit us up on Twitter if you want to. Give us on the call line at 989-272-3484. And once again, everybody have a good weekend and stay hydrated in this very hot summer. Everybody, Drink it in, man.
Pack the bag, start the plane. This game is over. It is over. What a comeback by the Lions.
Drink it in, man.